The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Here we go. Talkin' Buds Leaf Show. How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for taking time out of your life to join us. Episode 246. I'm Rob. He's Ryan. So you start the week with a game on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, which many of us included, felt, was that the best game this team has played in this core four era? Did you come away from that thinking that?
Yeah, recency bias. I mean, I'm sure they played a lot of great games in the past, but that game, they did it all. Like, that game had everything. They killed penalties. They scored on the power play. They forechecked. They were physical. They got to the front of the net. There was a little fight. There was, like, kind of greasy physicality, and they kind of just dominated from the drop of the puck. And I'm just watching it being like, this might be the best game I've ever seen them play. And of course, recency bias kind of dictates that, but they did it all that night. They were incredible.
What stood out about it the most was they ran the Lightning out of the rink from a physicality perspective. And how many times have we come on this podcast in years past and complained about how soft they are and how they shy away from physicality and how one of their teammates gets roughed up and they just skate away. And it was just very clear from the drop of the puck, they approached it with the mindset of, we are going to out-physical you tonight, without question. And so you come out of that game and you're feeling really good. Everyone's riding high. Everyone is loving the start under Craig Berube, myself included. I was like, the days of starting on time are over. That was a Sheldon Keefe, Kyle Dubas thing. Craig Berube has eradicated that. No more. And then they follow it up by laying an absolute egg on Tuesday night in Columbus against the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets did to them what the Leafs did to the Lightning the night prior. Just dominated them in every single aspect. It's one of the things that has been like an ongoing story with this era of the Leafs, this core four era, is taking nights off and playing down to lesser opponents. And going into the Columbus game, there were a lot of people who were like, let's see what they have tonight. Let's see, this is a classic game in the past, especially with how they played on Monday night where they would take the night off because it's a lesser opponent and they think they could just show up, put their skates on and go out there and beat a team like that. And they looked a lot like the Maple Leafs of old in that game and lost every single battle. You want to pull up a stat in that game, they were on the losing end of it. And it's to me, I came away from the Tuesday night loss in Columbus thinking, okay, we're not going to freak out. We're not going to panic. But we are going to accept the reality that what Craig Berube is trying to do here is change a culture. And you're not going to do that in 7 games. And this is a team, I'm sure there's a part of Berube and his staff that almost kind of liked that happened on Tuesday night, because then you can say, listen, fellas, like, we can go out and play great on Monday against Tampa Bay, but all of it's for nothing if we follow it up the very next night with a performance like that.
Yeah, it was tough. They got their asses kicked, no doubt about it. And I think through this year, what I'm going to judge their team on and how they're going to be different is whenever they do something, it's very, we label it as it's very Leafy. And I think under Craig Berube, trying to eradicate the Leafy moments is what, to me, is going to give me positivity to going in the playoffs. So them beating the Lightning and dominating them, and then coming out the next night against a lesser opponent who's banged up and has a goalie playing I've never even heard of, and they get dominated, that's very Leafy. But having said that, I've decided to take the I'm not worried about it approach. You look at the division right now, nobody's really running away with it. And I think they've played well enough to have a better record than what they have. And I'm just going to chalk it up to, in the NHL, some nights you're just going to stink. And maybe there is a you could relate it to like the culture problem and not being ready to play or whatever. You could definitely make an argument for that. But I think I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because in the games previous, I've really liked what I've seen so far in terms of the changes, in terms of the forechecking, the defense, everything that goes with it. I'm going to chalk it up to this was just a night where you stunk, and that's just going to happen in this league when you play 82 games.
I'm going to make a proclamation right now and say that if they play the way they played on Monday against Tampa, the Leafs can win this division. And I think if you're Craig Berube, that's what you're trying to convey to them is if we play that way, we can win the division. But if we're going to piss away 2 points with efforts like we had on Tuesday, then we're not going to win the division. And that's also kind of been the case in previous years. I mean, you look at where they finished and you think back on a season, it's like, oh, they threw 2 points away here. Oh, they choked and blew a lead there. Oh, they went to sleep in that one. And so that is, to your point about Leafy, that's it. And like I said, I just found last night, like I found Berube's demeanor. I stayed up and watched his press conference after the game, and I actually found him kind of, he wasn't as pissed off as I thought he'd be. And I think there's probably a multitude of reasons for that. I mean, it's game 7 of the season. They're coming off an unbelievable performance against a division rival. But at the same time, I like I said, I bet you there's a part of him that's like not really that upset that happened. You can it just hammers home your point that like, yeah, that's great. You can leave the rink on a Monday night feeling high and mighty about yourself, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you go out on Tuesday night and you play like that.
Yeah, we don't need to comb over every detail of the game, but I mean, if you look at it as a whole, it's just they weren't ready to play. They got outplayed. But if you really dissect that first period, I actually thought they started the game with some energy, but then your backup goalie, it really shows. I think that game is a perfect example of what goaltending can do in the National Hockey League. It's if you can't get a routine save early and the other team's humming, and because there's throughout a hockey game, most times, like you don't dominate for the whole 60 minutes. There's momentum shifts. There's parts of the game where the other team's on the forecheck, you're on the forecheck. And if Dennis Hildeby just makes a routine save or two, I think it's probably a different game. So, I mean, you could look at it as a whole and be like, this is very Leafy, this is the culture. But if you actually look into the details of the actual first period, they get a save or two. Who knows where that game goes? Because I think once it hit 3-0, then the Jackets just kept humming and humming and humming. And then the Leafs can't play that Craig Berube style that they're trying to adopt because now they're chasing the game.
I felt bad for Dennis Hildeby, man. I think, I think it showed like this is, he looked unreal a couple weeks ago in New Jersey, and I think we all got a little bit ahead of ourselves of thinking where he slots in the depth chart. He's a young guy, relatively inexperienced guy. He should be playing with the Marlies, and like because that's the thing too is guys sat on the bench for a week and a half at his age. Like send him down with the Marlies, let him play every night, let him be their number one goalie, and that's how he's going to get his confidence up and get a little bit more seasoning. And come out to start that game, and you're not sharp. And that's when you need your goalie to make you save, to your point. And he just wasn't able to do it. And before you know it, it's 3-0. And that's it. And they're in a situation where Stolarz has played so much. He's been so good. He needs that night off. Their schedule, this past week leading into next week, their schedule is insane. They play every other night. So he needs his rest. So you're kind of in a situation with Hildeby where it's like, yeah, he doesn't have it tonight, but it doesn't matter. Like he's got to stay in there.
Yeah, it's a good learning lesson for the kid. Like I don't look at him any different than like you give up stinkers sometimes. It's going to happen. If you saw it multiple times in a row, if he had the chance to go back in there and you saw him giving up goals like that over and over and over again, then it'd probably change my opinion a little bit. But we know what this depth chart's supposed to look like in terms of goaltending, which I'm sure that's where we're going eventually. And he just needs to go down to the Coca-Cola Coliseum and see as much rubber as he possibly can before he has an opportunity to be a guy in this league.
Well, it also affirms, like, if Joe Woll isn't going to be available, Matt Murray should be the guy at this point in time backing up Anthony Stolarz. I don't know why. I'm guessing it's a waiver thing. It has to be a waiver thing. Like I don't know why. Maybe they just wanted to give Hildeby a look. Maybe they like this.
Or Matt Murray
preseason.
hasn't seen a puck in I don't even know how many days. Like,
it's true, but he's an NHL. He's got NHL pedigree that Hildeby doesn't have. So maybe they liked Hildeby's game and they wanted to give him a look. But going forward now, he's played a few games with the Marlies. If you're in a situation where Joe Woll, who is still fucking MIA, is unable to play, then I think Matt Murray's got to be the guy, the experienced veteran guy that can go in there and do spot starts for you. If Woll's going to be out, the ideal scenario with the goaltending is obviously a Stolarz-Woll tandem sort of sharing the load. If one of them goes down, the other one's going to have to pick up the slack. And then beyond that, if you need spot starts back-to-back, it should be Matt Murray at this point. That should be, in my opinion, that should be the strategy with the goaltending.
Yeah, and I think eventually it will get there.
I came out of the Columbus game more pissed off at Joe Woll, to be honest with you. Like, I came out of that game being like, where the hell are you? Like, all week it was, they're targeting Tuesday against Columbus, and you're like, okay, cool. And he's practicing with the team, and you're like, okay, like we're gonna finally see him. We're gonna get this tandem rolling. And then like middle of the afternoon yesterday, it's like, oh nope, Joe Woll's not playing. They're gonna go with Hildeby. He's still not ready. And it's like, not ready. Like what is going on? Who makes these decisions? That's what I want to know. Is it him? Is it the sports science department? Is it the goalie coach? Like who is it? Because that would have been a perfect game for him to come back, make a save or two or three, and keep them in it. But he's just not available.
Yeah, it was, and it seemed like he was going to start too. Like that was kind of the conversation from every outlet that I've kind of saw, and then all of a sudden it's just, well, he needs extra time. So, I mean, I just looked up Matt Murray. Matt Murray's played 2 games with the Marlies so far, and he's allowed 5 goals in 2 games, and got pretty good numbers so far. So I think for him, it's just like seeing as much rubber as possible. But it's funny that Matt Murray and Joe Woll are in the same organization, because if you map out Joe Woll's career based on how it's going, it's kind of Matt Murray-ish.
Yeah, not being able to stay healthy, injured every 2 seconds.
Yeah, and when you do show up in the playoffs, you play well.
Yes, exactly.
So like those two need to get away from each other, or just like Matt Murray maybe needs to give him some advice on how to not follow in his footsteps, because the way Joe Woll's going, he's on the same trajectory as that guy.
What's your thoughts currently on the power play? They scored against Tampa. It looked a little bit. It looked a little bit better, but we're still trotting out the same personnel, and
it's just not dangerous at all.
No, it's not.
Man. Like it's just not.
What I don't understand is it's clear that the Berube strategy is each unit gets a minute of the 2 minutes. Like, because it's pretty, like, in the Keefe days, that first unit would stay out there for the full 2 minutes. If they can, he's pulling them off after 1 minute and getting the other unit out there. Why not spread the love? Like, break up. Like, you've loaded your first one up with all these talented goal scorers. Why not spread it out? If you're going to go 1 minute each, why not do that?
Yeah, I thought the first 2 games, they really made a concerted effort to do that, to split it up. And then I found in the middle 2, they started kind of going back to the first unit's going to take like a minute 30 at least. But I'm just so sick of talking about it. I know they got a couple goals, but overall, we all know it sucks. And yeah, they got to do something. It's just not dangerous at all. Like, they're never just firing pucks on net, and the other team's in danger, and the crowd's gasping, and there's chance after chance. It's just like, if they're lucky, they get a chance or 2. And then it's just they're spending the whole time digging the puck out of their own zone and trying to move it up the ice again. And then, of course, same old thing. They can't get past the opponent's blue line without giving the puck away, and then it goes back down to their end again. And then when they
actually do get into the zone, it's so slow. Like, that, to me, the puck movement is so slow.
I'm always sick of talking about this, man.
You always say it's really easy. It looks really easy to defend. That's so true, because they don't snap it around with any sort of authority.
Yeah, it's just like, who's shooting the puck? Like, I don't even know, like, what. Like, I don't. Sometimes, I guess you can make the argument you don't want your power play to be too predictable, but like Alexander Ovechkin's about to beat Wayne Gretzky's goal record by having a predictable power play strategy. So, like, I who's shooting the puck, who's doing what? Like, I don't know what's going on, and it's just like, it's just when they get when they get a power play, it's a free 2 minutes for the other hockey team to not dig a puck out of the back of their net. It's just, that's how it is.
Where are you at on the decision to sit David Kampf and put Pontus Holmberg in that fourth line center role? And I'm asking that specifically because Pontus Holmberg is really struggling.
Yeah.
And I saw a great take on Pontus Holmberg that was, I kind of agree with when I started thinking about it. What does Pontus Holmberg, like when you think of Pontus Holmberg, what do you think of?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. What does he bring to the table? Like what is it about Pontus Holmberg where you go, that is what Pontus Holmberg is really good at?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're in this kind of weird place with him where I think they do want him to move on. They want him to replace David Kampf in that fourth line center role. To me, I think ideally in the organization, that's what they're looking for because I think they'd like to move on from David Kampf come the trade deadline. I think David Kampf makes too much money and they would love to get him off their books. And I don't think he does enough that they're like, oh, we have to have David Kampf. But he's not doing it. And Berube's been like vocal in the media after the game about how much he dislikes the way Pontus Holmberg is playing.
Yeah.
It's just like this guy was the golden boy in training camp. Treliving's on the radio talking about him. I was like, oh, Holmberg is going to be Treliving's guy. And then the pucks dropped to start the regular season, and he's completely ineffective.
Yeah, I mean, again, another conversation where it's like, how much time do you want to spend talking about the fourth line center? I mean, yeah, he's been awful. And I love how David Kamp's making 2.4, and it's like, this guy's making way too much money because 2.4 is like a huge chunk of their cap because of the way it's structured. So it kind of sounds stupid when you like say it out loud, but I mean, it is true. Like you have a fourth line center eating any sort of money who isn't contributing really anything. And now he's not even like... If
you move off David Kampf and Tim Liljegren, that's $5.5 million.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get it. It's just, it's funny when you say it out loud, but it is true. I don't know. What like that fourth line said, like, hopefully Connor Dewar can come back and like provide something in that role. Like, I don't know. Like it's Pontus Holmberg and David Kampf on paper are the exact same hockey player. Like they're not going to give you anything offensively. So then at that point, it's like, it's a battle of like, who's the better penalty killer? Who's the better forechecker? Who's better defending 5-on-5? Like, because they both do nothing offensively. Who wins more puck battles? Because that's a critique that Berube had for Pontus Holmberg, is being harder on pucks. So, I mean, I guess when you're throwing it up on a whiteboard and you're trying to come up with the positive negatives between the two, it comes down to like the little details like that, and that's how they're gonna have to like make their decision. Because right now Pontus Holmberg sucks. Like he's not good at all. Like he's looks terrible. And we know that David Kamp's just a very underwhelming hockey player that no one gets excited to talk about or watch. So maybe Connor Dewar, I don't know what his status is. Maybe he can come back and provide something in that role.
Today's episode of the Talking Buds Leaf Show is brought to you by Game Time.
Rob, the girlfriend and I just got a place right downtown. And since we've been down here, you know I've been to a couple Jays games. You know I've been to some concerts. And you know for a fact I'll be in the building for a couple Leaf games this season. And anytime I need to grab tickets to an event, I use Game Time.
I recently used Game Time to grab some tickets for you and me to go see Creed at Scotiabank Arena in November. I'm getting warmed up. I'm getting excited. Home now.
All right. If you keep going, they won't want to do business with us anymore.
All right. I digress. I'll save my Scott Stapp impression for another time.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier.
Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets.
Game Time Picks curates and makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater.
They've got my favorite feature, which is called Seat Views, where you can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy.
Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
The polarizing dialogue around Mitch Marner continues. We had someone write a very good lengthy comment on our video from the weekend, just pointing out the things that Marner does well and what he likes about him and how important he is. But then there's a whole other side of the fan base, and I think we lean to this side too. We're like, I just don't. For me, it's offensively. I don't love his game offensively still, and he frustrates me with what he does on the power play, and he frustrates me with he doesn't look. He's trying to play a certain way offensively that isn't molding into this Craig Berube style. Like the announcers on Monday night on Prime were on and on about like, this is a new style where they're dumping it in and chasing it and hard on the forecheck. And like Mitch Marner doesn't play hockey that way. And I think when you combine that with the amount of money he's going to ask for,
bingo.
I saw a quote on Twitter last night that said, in no world is Mitch Marner more valuable than William Nylander. And that got me really thinking, because at this point in time, I'm tending to agree with that statement.
Yeah, so far this season, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Even
Like,
last season, too.
Right? So it's kind of like, I think that's the issue with Marner. I think he's going to ask for 12 plus million, and you watch him and it's like, yes, you're a great 200-foot hockey player, incredibly skilled. For weeks I've been talking about how much I like him as a penalty killer, how he makes little plays defensively. But to me, he's not making the impact offensively. And people always turn to his puck distribution and how valuable that is to Matthews. Like Matthews is the point producer and goal scorer that he is because of the way Mitch Marner distributes the puck. And while I don't totally disagree with that, I do think that the Marner supporters overvalue that, and they make it seem like Marner is solely responsible for Matthews' goal scoring and point production, when I don't necessarily believe that. Because another thing, you saw how good Matthews was with Max Domi last year.
Yeah. I honestly believe that not every single guy on your team needs to like fit the Berube style like perfectly. Like Mitch Marner is never going to be a hard forechecker who lays the body. And that, to me, that is fine. As long as he can like do his best to do what he can to contribute to that style, like fine. But he doesn't have to be Matthew Nyes. He doesn't need to go in and forecheck hard. It's just, it all comes down to the number that he's going to demand. Like, it's just, I actually haven't really hated his game so far this year. He's just kind of Mitch Marner. He's gotten some points. Like, I think he could be a little more like dominant offensively, I guess, but I don't think he's been awful. It's just at the end of the day, like his ceiling to me is William Nylander's number. Like he can't go above that, but for me personally, I don't even want him close to that either. Like, I don't even want him at the ticket he's on now. It's too bad for him that he signed his first contract later than William Nylander, because if he was up before Nylander, he probably would have gotten the money. Like, it's the way it's worked out for him. And I think it's just all about the number. You're just watching him, and it's like, if we just cut your number in half or had all your money, maybe we could trust Brad Treliving to go out and fill like two guys like that could do more together than what he's doing by himself right now.
Add to your center depth.
Because
it's just, I think that second line has been fantastic, and I think Max Domi's been really good. But I know you're someone who thinks that, like, is Max Domi a viable option for you at center come playoff time?
No,
exactly. So
no, he's not, and it's. I could see your side, like you're harder on him than I am, and I could see your side, and I could see the side of the guy in the comments talking about all the good things he does. Like, I understand both sides, but at the end of the day, it's just, he's not worth what he thinks he is, and even at the ticket he's at right now, like if this team's ever going to dream about winning a Stanley Cup, like they need more center depth. They need better defensemen. Like I just don't know if you could just give him that whole chunk of change for what he's currently doing and what he's done in the past. Like it's just as simple. To me, it's as simple as that.
Yes, 100%. 100% agree. Talk to me about the text you sent me last night about some of and again, this is all speculation, but people are talking about a potential contract extension for John Tavares and are throwing out numbers $5-6 million. And Ryan sent me a text halfway through the second period of the Columbus game, basically being like, you're gonna spaz if they sign John Tavares for $5 million plus.
Yeah, I said if the number is $5 to $7 million, I'm gonna throw a spaz because he is just so not worth that. I don't know what his point total is going to be at the end of the year. I don't know how many goals he's going to score. But right now, he is a third line center who cannot produce anything 5-on-5. And you look at his career, it's like, dude, you've made enough money, man. Come on. You've made making $11 million the past 7 seasons. Your contract before that was good too. This is at some point someone has to make a sacrifice to keep this team together. You look at Brad Marchand signing the number he's at. He's the captain of that team who does more for his hockey team than John Tavares. It's like, dude, you've made over $100 million in your career. If you want to stay here, I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel like I owe you anything. You need to take the biggest haircut in NHL history.
So what is that number? What is that number?
To me, it's max 3.5. To me, that's what it is. Because you look at their cap, it's Max Domi's making 3.75. So and I think Max Domi is doing more for your hockey team right now than you are. To me, it's you've made a lot of money in your career. If you can't live off the money that you've made so far in your career, then I'm extremely worried about your finances.
He was in a legal dispute with CRA. So
well, then go find another team in the NHL that's going to pay you that money, because I would actually say that actually, no, this is kind of stupid. I was going to say I'd be more mad if they signed John Tavares for $6 million than I would for Mitch Marner at 12. But thinking about it, that's not true. But it's if you want to stay here, if you want to be a Leaf for the rest of your career, I'm sorry, you got to take the biggest haircut in history. You have to think about.
I don't think that Brad Treliving is going to sign John Tavares for $5 million plus. I don't see it happening. I think they'd like to keep him, but do you not think that when the two sides are sitting down to negotiate, you got to think the Tavares side wants to stay more than the Leafs want to keep him.
Yeah.
The Leafs have more leverage in that sense because Tavares' family is here, his life is here. He's got a young family. I'm sure he doesn't want to uproot them and move somewhere else. He's from Oakville, right? So you got to think how badly do you want to stay here, John? Because if you want to stay here badly, this is the number. And some people can get upset and sentimental about that. And to that, I point to Julien Brisebois looking at Steven Stamkos, who has accomplished far more in his career than John Tavares has, and looking at him and going, sorry, Stammer. We're not paying you.
Stammer had 40 goals last year, and John Tavares did not have 40 goals last year.
He also led his team to 2 straight cups, 3 straight finals.
Yeah,
so
even though someone in the comments probably be like, he didn't play in the first cup run. But,
whatever. Who cares? He's still the captain of the team and their leader. He's accomplished far more in his career than John Tavares has. And Julien Brisebois had the stones to look at him and say, this is the reality of the National Hockey League. It's a hard cap league. This is the number. If you don't like it, go to Nashville and go 0-5. Yeah. So basically, that's what happened. And I don't think Treliving is going to be that much of a hard ass, because I think they like John and he did them a solid this offseason by handing the C over to Matthews and making it no drama, which personally, the way he's played to start the season, I think was a smart move because it takes a lot of heat off him.
100%.
But yeah, it is what it is. 100% agree.
I think every Leaf pod or Leaf show or radio show in the city that you'll come across, he's going to be such a hot button topic this year, I feel like, in terms of his production.
He already is. There's people it's been a topic on things I've listened to, just about how he looks, and a couple of people have pointed out that people who are complaining that he's slow, it's he's always been slow, right? That's not. But you know the thing about Johnny T, Ryan?
Yeah, I know.
And what's he going to say across the table from them when he's negotiating? He's going to go,
still elite down low.
I'm still elite down low.
Yeah.
You get me in front of the net, I can wire one home, baby.
Yeah, and also when he gave the seat to Matthews, I said on this podcast that he's maybe got to start thinking about the next evolution of his game, and we'll see what happens at the end of the season in terms of point production and goals. But maybe it's time for you to start thinking about looking at the other end and starting to be a little bit better in your own end and kind of transforming your game. And because he's been playing hockey for a long time, he's a number 1 overall pick. He was an elite player in this league. Like, I think he could shore up the defensive side of his game if he ever decided it's like, I can't really do the production the way I used to. So let's focus on being more of a shutdownish center, because the guy's, what is he, like 60% in the face-off? He could play that role, I feel like, going forward, but not on the ticket he's on right now, and not even on half the ticket he's on right now.
2 things. One, I loved your Max Domi point about this is what Max Domi makes, and that's where you should start with Tavares, because like you said, Domi is far more effective and important to this team on a night-to-night basis right now. And number 2, what about moving him to the wing? Do you ever envision a scenario where John Tavares is playing on the wing?
I don't think he needs to play on the wing. I don't, because he's 60% in the dot every single year. He's their best face-off guy. He's one of the best face-off guys in the year. You're going to put him on the... I guess he could take face-offs and then move to the wing after, but I don't think that's the problem. I think his problem is he's making way too much money, and he might not be able to get the amount of points and the amount of goals that he's been getting his entire career. So it's like, I'm sure there's lots of examples of veteran players in this league who've kind of changed their role as they've gotten older. And I think he needs to start thinking about maybe I won't get so sad if I don't score in 5 games or whatever, because he can just put himself on a different expectation level of what his role is going to be. I don't know.
One last question I wanted to ask you and get your take on, and then we're going to get out of here, is, so they've got Yanni Hakanpää sitting there. A lot of people are like, he could come back to play at some point. He could not. Who knows? Do you think they need to look at upgrading that third pair? I'm talking about Simone Benoit too. I think Simone Benoit has been okay to start the season. And I know we're talking about a third pair here.
Yeah,
but
here we go.
When you talk about going into the playoffs, it's I don't love the idea of having Simone Benoit and Connor Timmins out there. I don't. And hopefully Hakanpää can come back. He's the exact type of guy you'd be looking to get if you went out to try and upgrade that position. But do you think that's something they should explore?
I mean, in an ideal world, I would love to move Jake McCabe down to the third pair and find a guy to play on the second pair. I think that's their biggest problem.
Okay.
All right. That's another guy you got to be careful with the amount of money you're going to dole out to him. Some of the extension numbers for that guy are a little scary as well.
People love that guy. And I get it.
He's not a bad player, but
no, and I get why. He's the classic type of guy that the city falls in love with. He plays with an edge.
Does he though?
He does.
He really?
He's got.
I think Oliver Ekman Larson has played with 10 times more of an edge than he has ever had in the 7 games I've seen him play.
Jake McCabe has some snarl to his game. The problem with Jake McCabe is Jake McCabe tries to jump up into the rush and thinks he's a far more skilled offensive player than he actually is. That's the problem with Jake McCabe. He overvalues his offensive ability, but he's got a meanness and a snarl to his game, and that's why people like him.
I think. What the hell did I just do there?
I don't know.
I think you and I could be doing this podcast for the next 80 years, and at least 15 times during a season, we could have this conversation.
Yeah.
I think every team in the league is probably having this conversation of, can we upgrade our third pair? Because there's nothing we can do to upgrade our top pair or our second pair because of the salary cap. So the only thing we can do is find somebody who doesn't cost any money to make our third pair better, to make our team look better. So I'm fine with the way it is right now. It is what it is. I find it interesting that Connor Timmins is kind of won over that job from Berube, and I don't think he's really been that bad. It's just... Well, I guess in a perfect world, it would be a better pair, but for now, I don't think it's make or break for them.
Part of that is Berube can't stand Timothy Liljegren. I think that's a huge part of it. He's just...
I think Connor
He's not
Timmins
a
has
Berube guy.
shown the ability in the past when he's healthy to be able to like move the puck around, but he's also shown the ability to be a complete liability in his own end. So I don't know. In a perfect world, they get Hakanpää back. He's a big guy. So if you're going to have an identity for your third pair, you'd rather it be like, these are big dudes who are going to clear out in front of the net, because your third pair is not going to be full of like offensive guys. They're not going to be your most skilled players. So ideally, like kind of like your fourth line, you would want your third pair to be like big dudes. That's kind of the way I find people kind of lean towards wanting their third pair to be.
You look at the upcoming weekend ahead. I mean, that I mentioned their schedule earlier. They're still like, they're every other night. Like they got St. Louis at home on Thursday night. Then they're in TD Garden on Saturday night. Then they're in Winnipeg on Monday. Another game on Amazon Prime. What did you think of the Amazon Prime coverage broadcast?
Yeah, it was fine. It was good. I
thought it was pretty good.
It's funny how like every like US play-by-play guy like sounds the exact same to me.
Yes.
Like they all just have kind of the same like generic play-by-play voice. But yeah, no, I thought it was good.
I think it's sports in this country is so dominated by the two telcos. So it's nice to get sort of a third party to come in and watch just some different coverage. It's refreshing. We are going to be back on Sunday morning because there's just no way we're not going to do an episode following a visit to TD Garden at our usual Sunday morning time slot. So if you'd like to join us for that, hit that like and subscribe button below. If you're listening on the audio, like, subscribe, review, all that fun stuff.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We really appreciate it. We'll see you in a couple days.